Alright guys, welcome back. We got a short little project today. It's going to snow tomorrow. It's supposed to get 6 to 8 inches. And I got to fix the shoes that go on the Fisher snowplow. So these shoes came off my old plow. I bought this back in 2002. I bought it brand new, came with a set of shoes. So when I bought my new truck, I bought a new plow last year, one of the stainless steel plows, a Fisher, and lo and behold, they don't come with shoes anymore. So I went online last year to buy a set of shoes, and they want $280 just for the mounts, and then you got to buy the shoes too. So the old plows, if any of you guys are familiar with them, the mounts are welded right on the lower trip edge. So the old plow, you can buy the mounts, the repair mounts, for about $10, $12, and they weld on the trip edge. So as the plow gets older, it starts rotting, or if something happens to it, you can replace them. So I figured I'll buy those, weld them to a plate, and then mount them to the trip edge on the bottom, on the trip edge of the new plow, which I did. The problem with it is that the new plow is designed quite a bit different, and it's much taller where you put that mount. So this shoe is too short. So it comes to the top of the mount, right about the top of that hole. So I can't put my pin in it, and it just barely touches the ground to give me a little bit of, if you want to leave about an inch of snow left on the driveway. So I got to make some extensions. So I turned one of them down, put it in the lathe, turned it, faced it, and we'll put an extension on there. And I'm just going to use a 3/8/16 set screw, and I'm going to Loctite it together. And you have these spaces that you put on here to set whatever the amount of snow that you want to leave on the ground. Anything extra you can put on the top after it's in the sleeve, and you put your pin through, and it holds it in place, and it gives you some adjustability. So I'm going to make a 3-inch extension so I have plenty of adjustability. I'd rather it be long than short. If it's too short, it's not going to work. So the only time I use these shoes is when I'm doing a dirt driveway, and my driveway is dirt. So last year I did without the shoes. I just kind of picked the plow up a little bit when I was doing my driveway and left a couple inches and then back bladed it so I wouldn't tear up the driveway, because if the driveway is not really hard, it's going to tear it up. So yesterday it was 50 degrees out. Today it was 38, 40, around there. So it hasn't had any time to really freeze the driveway, and tomorrow we're going to get 6 to 8 inches of snow. So you hit that with a straight blade, it's ugly. It makes a mess out of the driveway. So I used to use these when I did my driveway and a couple of my neighbors' driveways that are dirt. When I do a parking lot that's asphalt, no big deal. Straight blade right down on the ground. They want it, bare pavement when you're done. So it's not a big deal. So what we're going to do today is we're going to make that extension. And I have a whole bunch of these spaces to space it out. So put those on, comes up underneath, sets the blade what you want. And like I said, I like to leave about an inch of snow on my driveway. And if I really want it down a little bit lower than that, I'll do a quick back blade on it. It won't tear up the driveway. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, the biggest problem with this is 6 inches across. My 8-inch 4-jaw is max. This is about the biggest thing that I can actually put in there. The jaws are sticking out a lot. Now, I know how far I can open this jaws up based upon one of the rings that are on the face of the chuck. So they're not going to come out. I still have a good 3 turns on the bolts before the jaws will release from the chuck. It's not pretty. It can be dangerous to have jaws sticking out this far. I would have loved to grab on the outside by flipping the jaws around, but if you look at this, when you put it in the chuck, it grabs it right about here, and this is a radius. If it grabbed out on the edge, I would have been fine with that, but I don't want to spit this out. I'm not turning it real fast. I'm not doing any heavy turning. I'm cutting it off, and I'm going to use a center. I'm going to trim it right below that adjustment hole or that quick key, and then I'm going to face it off, and I'm going to drill and tap it. Now, if I didn't have to face this, I would have done this in a drill press. I would have located my center punched it, and drilled it, and tapped it, and it would have been fine. But because these are cast, and it's a cast steel, because they are a lot harder than cast iron. And I've cut a lot of cast iron in my life. I used to own a machine shop, automotive machine shop. I cut a lot of cast iron. This is harder, but they're rounded because, you know, there's a casting, a parting line. So in order to get that piece to fit flat, I got to face it. So I got to put it in the lathe. The tolerances here are really not big. I mean, if you look at this linchpin, it's pretty loose, and when you put it in the holder or the mount, it's got a lot of room. So I got a piece of steel here. This was an old shaft for a blower motor, big blower motor. I believe it's 4140. It turns nice, so I'm going to use that. So we're going to set it up in the lathe. When you see the setup, you see how scary those jaws are. And I'm not fond of it myself, but it is the only way that I can actually grab this. So what I'm going to do is put it in the chuck. I'm going to indicate it in 2 places, and it is a casting, and it's got about 8 thousandths run out on that casting. So we're going to get it close. We're going to split it, get it as close as possible, and it'll be fine. All right, I'll see you back when I'm all set up. All right, it's hard for you to see, but the corner or the end of this 45 on the jaw, I can bring out right to this last line and be pretty safe. It's a little bit in front of that. So like I said, I got about 3 full turns, maybe 3.5, 3 3/4 on each one of these screws. So it's not going to go anywhere. It's just a little hairy, and you got to stay away from that. It looks nasty, but that's the way it is. So I'm going to set up the dial indicator, and I'm going to indicate in 2 points. I put the parting line in between the two of the jaws, so that as we go around, we're not hitting that parting line every time with the dial indicator. So we'll bump it around. I get it within a couple of thousandths. I'm going to be pretty happy with that. Actually, if I get this within 5 thousandths, I'm going to be pretty happy. Now, this is out of round because it's casted. This is out of round, so it's casted. So even though I had a piece in here already, it's probably not even going to be close, but let's see. Take it out of gear. Wow. That's 100 thousandths right there. And let's see where this one is. That one's about 100 thousandths too. All right, so this is gonna take a little bit to get this in, because not only is it off in 2 directions, but it's not round. Okay, so I'm going to set this up. I'm going to read it here, and then I'm going to tap it around so that this is true. Go back over here, re-indicate it in with the jaws, and then come back over here. And like I said, if I'm within 5, I'm going to be more than happy. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes. Alright, so we're back. I got it within 5 thousandths on either side. I'll spin it, let you see it. So it looks pretty good. So I'm going to face it off on the end. I'm going to drill a center. I'm going to put a center in here, and then I'm going to cut it off right at this hole. I'm going to pot it off, and then I'm going to drill and tap it, and this will be done. Then we'll move on to the other piece of steel, make the 3-inch extension, turn it down, drill and tap it, and I'll bring it out to the Bridgeport in the garage. I'm not going to set up with the camera to do that because I'm just going to plow 2 holes through it in the center. Okay? Alright, let's get rolling. Actually going to slow that down just a bit. Do a little bit more, and I'm just looking to clean up just the center area where I got to drill it. I don't care about cleaning it all the way out. Alright, so I got enough for a center, and I'm going to center that. You want to make sure that nothing hits. Now, this is forged steel, so I'm going to use a little cutting oil. It does cut a little bit like cast iron as far as the way the chips are, but it's definitely not a straight regular cast iron. But from doing the other one, it works a little better with the oil. Change that over to a center. Bring this down a lot slower. See. Let's do. I'll run at about 115. I do not want to pull this out of the chuck. So we're going to go slow and steady. And I'm just going to line that up so that I'm a little bit away from the hole. Alrighty. I'm not going to cut this right off. I'm going to cut down pretty good, and then I'm going to take a hacksaw and finish it up. See, that wasn't that bad. There is a low spot in the you can see it's actually a chip. It's a curl. It's not dust like cast iron. All right, I'll come back when I'm almost finished. I wanted to stay away from the hole enough, because if I was right on the hole, when I got down to the center, it would have popped off on me, and I don't want to break my cut-off tool. Alright, so I'm going to hit the emergency stop, pull this out, hold the center out, and we'll cut it off. So we'll face that off and drill and tap it. All right, we'll speed it up again. I'm running that around 460. Feeding this by hand, I just want to feel it. That looks pretty good. That came out good. Bring this over here, lock it so I can't move, make sure nothing hits, and we're going to drill and tap it. So if we measure this one right here, like I said, it doesn't have to be perfect. If we come up to about here, we're about 3 7/8. If I measure this one, we're about the same thing. Okay, it's close enough for this. I'll be back when I get set up. All right, we're ready to drill and tap it. I'm going to drill this down about an inch. I want about 3/4 of an inch of thread. That way I don't have to deal with a bottom and tap if I drill it a little bit deeper. Boiler's going to come on in a minute. I just heard this the circulator come on, so set this up, and we're just going to use the tailstock quill for our depth. Come up, just touch it, back off just a little bit, lock the tailstock, and I'm going to pause here and wait for the boiler to come on and finish. Be right back. Alright, so we're back. Double check that. Quarter of an inch. And that's 1 inch. I'll bring you back when I'm set up with the tap. Alright, so I'm going to put a tap in the tailstock chuck. Run it really slow to start this, to get it running true. And then I'm going to put a spring-loaded center in the tailstock. And I'm going to use a tool that I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen before. It's a tap wrench, but it's an interesting one. So I found this in my father's stuff quite a while ago when I was cleaning out his stuff after he had passed away. And it's the OK, I'm not tool holder. I'm not sure what it says, in Shelton, Connecticut. So if you look at this, basically, let me bring it out. It's got a floating center on one side, and then you tighten up the tap, and you can, it's got one-sided tap handle. It actually works really cool, so I'll show you how this works. So let's put a tap in the tailstock chuck. We'll run it in. Let's drop this down again, down to around 100. .3/8/16, and I'm not going to tighten this thing real tight because I'd rather it spin than snap. Although I don't want to ruin this chuck either. This is a really nice chuck. It's old as Methuselah, but it's a Jacob Super Chuck, and I've had this for many years, and it's really nice. All right. I'm just going to hit the brake. Undo the chuck. Put my spring-loaded center in. I'm going to hit my safety just to make sure, because I'm going to grab onto this chuck. I don't want any possibility that it can turn on. And I got to take this out of gear because I can't. What's nice, you can just kind of back up and cool. And I mean, with that floating center right here, it finds dead center. I haven't used this in a long time, but it's actually pretty cool. Just gonna go till it bottoms out. All right, back this up. Alright, take that off. Just going to take a little chamfering tool. Probably help if I put the headstock in gear. Alright, let's go a little faster. I'm going to take the old burr off there. Just take a file and just touch the edge, just so it's not sharp. Alright, so I'll take that over, blow it out, clean it all up. I'll put some brake clean in there, clean it all up, so when we put the Loctite in there, it'll work really well. Alright, so I'm going to switch chucks. I'm going to put the other piece of steel in there and turn up the spaces, the 3-inch spaces, and we can put this thing together. Be right back. So you can see this has a flat on it, and that's where the set screws were locked for the fan, or whatever, squirrel cage, whatever you want to call it, for whatever this unit was, that it was, whether it was a heater or whatever. And it's pretty decent steel to work with. I made this not too long ago, and you can see it. It's so hard to focus this sometimes. And you can see that flat spot where the keyways were. But I made this little tailstock die holder. This will probably be gone, not that it really matters. Let's face it up, come up with a dimension, and let's turn it down and get it within a few thousandths. Okay. Alright, I think this stuff turned really good at 460, so we'll give it a shot. You gotta put it in the gear before I can put the other gears in. Alright, let's see what we got. And I'm gonna cut these off at 3 inches. I'm gonna cut them off 3 inches each. So I'll finish each one and then part it off. Alright, so what size are we going to do this? Well, there's the old Brownie shop calipers. So it's about 1 inch 288, depending on where you do it, 290, 89, 90. So we're going to go right around there, 1 inch 290. So what I'm going to do is, this is 1 inch 290. I'm going to zero it right there, so I can see how much I need to take off this. Alright, so we got to take off 138 thousandths roughly. Alright, what do we set up for a feed? Let me set up my feed and I'll be right back. Alright, so let's make a line 3 inches. Go just a tick more. Alright. Make a line. We'll take 3 passes of 40, see how it looks. Bring you back when I'm down to my 3 passes of 40. Let's see where we are. So I'm about 27 thousandths I got to take off. Right? Yep, about 27. So let's like take 13-ish and we'll check it again and finish it up. Bring you back in the last. It's a better finish with a bigger cut. I think what I'll do is speed it up on my last cut, see how it works. So 14 thousandths, let's take the 14. And it should be close enough. Alright, let's just jump it up one more. We're one over. All right, that's fine. That looks good. So that's gonna bolt right up to that, and we should be good. All right, I'm gonna drill it and tap it offline, off camera. Same thing I did before, and then we'll pot it off. I'll chamfer the, just put this back in the chuck. We'll face off the back side and chamfer it. And I wanted to make sure I didn't go too far than 3 inches, because when I move this in the chuck, this being a 3-jaw chuck, it's not going to repeat 100%. So I can move this without a problem because I'm turning everything in one position. All right, and it's actually not hot, so it might shrink about 1/1000th when it cools down a little bit. All right, I'll bring you back when we do the next one. All right, so we're going to pot this off. Just going to bring this over to my 3-inch mark. Not going to go too crazy. Looks good. And we'll pot that off. Lock the carriage. Spin. Everything clears. Here we go. In hindsight, I probably should have went about 1/8 further so that I wasn't in that interrupted cut. It wasn't so cold outside, I put this in the horizontal bandsaw. Bring you back when we're just about done. Getting real close. I'm going to break this off. Just don't like it to drop on my I probably could have went a little bit more. Alright, so I'm just going to face it off, chamfer it, and it'll be ready for a hole. Alright, so that's just about finished. A nice chamfer on there. Came out pretty good. Now all I got to do is take it out to the Bridgeport and drill a cross hole, clean them all up, and Loctite them together. Alright, I'm going to do the other one off camera, and I'll see you back when we put them together. Alright, it's the next day. I got tired last night. I need to drill a hole in the side of this for the linchpin. So what I was going to do is go outside to the Bridgeport and drill that hole, and it would have been really, really easy. But the Bridgeport has been winterized. It's all oiled up. It's been covered with plastic. The digital readout is off it, and the phase converter is all wrapped up. So I'm going to do it in here. It's actually easier to do it in here than it would be to do it in the Bridgeport. So let me explain how I set this up. I want my hole to come through here offset from this end about 5/8 of an inch. So what I did, and like I said, this is for a linchpin. It's really not that critical, but I want it to be close to that. I put my center in my tailstock, and I came over here and I put this against the jaw, and I just set this jaw until I had it's hard for me to do this with the camera in this position. So I came over here till I had 5/8 of an inch. That's close enough. I put my piece in the machine, put a little bit of pressure on it this way, just to make sure that I still had my 5/8 of an inch. Then I stood it up this way, and I brought these over with just a little bit of pressure on this to make sure that this was in the center. So I lined it up by eye again. I used my center and lined it up by eye. And what I ended up doing was, before I set this up, I measured the face of this jaw to here and the opposite jaw, and they were within 1/10 of each other. So what I ended up doing was setting this up and putting a dial indicator, my dial indicator, on the top of this jaw, and just swinging it back and forth until I find the low spot. Go to the opposite side and do the same thing. And I just adjusted it back and forth until I got within a couple of thousandths. Now there might be a little bit different because the cardboard may be squished a little bit, depending on how it sat in that jaw. I'm not that concerned about this. Again, it's for a linchpin. So I got that centered, pretty good centered in the chuck. So I'm 5/8 of an inch over from offset. I'm center to center on the center of my rod. And then I took a dial indicator and put it on the face of this. I came up and touched it. I just run it back and forth till I find the highest point, and then move it over here and find the higher point to make sure that it's square in the chuck and it's within a thousandth. Okay, so we look pretty good. We're going to drill a hole in there. Now I got to do 2 of these. So what I have to remember to do when I take this out is my number 1 and my number 2 jaw are going to be my locating jaw. So when I open this up, I got to take 3, loosen 3 and 4. So when I put it back in here, it's going to be pretty close to where I want it to be. I'll just go back in and double check all the measurements, but it should be just a fine adjustment. It shouldn't be anything really, really big like it was before. Okay, so I'm going to make sure everything's snug, and we're going to drill a hole. All right, I'll bring you back when we're ready to drill a hole. All right, I'm 1,000th right there. And I'm a half there, so I'm a half within, so that looks good. I'm going to try and move this camera so you guys can actually see this. Alright, so we're set up on the chuck. I'm right on that jaw, and I'm going to flip it 180 degrees. I'm going to come up on top of the jaw. I'm right in the middle of that rib. I'm going to go back and forth to find the low spot. Okay, back it out. And flip it 180 degrees. And you only want the indicator to go a little bit because you don't want to get lost. I'm in the middle of the rib. So I'm within 1,000th. So I'm pretty assured that I'm pretty close to the center of that piece that I'm going to drill. All right, let me put you back up top and we'll drill it. All right, so that was my setup. And I just went back and forth into the bottom of that groove. And like I said, it could be off a little bit because depending on how much the cardboard crushed from this side to the other side, but again, it's for a linchpin. Alright, so I went around and I tightened each one of these, make sure they were tight, and they were pretty snug. And I rechecked it, and it pretty much stayed where it was, within a 1/1000th. So let's drill some holes. Make sure nothing hits. That would be good if I put it in gear. Too sure about the grind on this drill. I don't feel like grinding the drill. It's a little bit off some, but we'll see. That's not bad. Wobbling a little bit. Drilled this hole the same size as the other one, the original hole. This drill is, I don't know if it's got a little bend in it. If you look in there, it left a little, like, almost like a thread mark. I think the that drill's got a little bit of a bend to it. Alright, let's take it out. It's not too hot. And what I will do is my locating sides on my number one jaw and my number 2 jaw to get it back close, so when I set it up for the next one. So I'll break it loose on this one. And break it loose on this one. And there it is. And it's got a horrendous burr on one side. Alright, I'm going to clean them up, wash them all up, and get them ready to Loctite them together. And how I'm burring these is really simple. I'm just using a little hand to burr. Does a pretty good job. Alright, so I did them both. I'm gonna now wash them all up and get them ready to Loctite them together. Alright, so everything's cleaned up. I'm going to Loctite the studs into this pot. First, let them set up, and then I'll fit them for length. If I have to, I'll trim them off. And I'm just going to kind of just make sure they're in the bottom. Alright, I'll let those set up. I'll see how much has to be trimmed. I'll trim them up and Loctite them into that, and I'll be back when I'm done. Alright, we're back. It's about an hour later. The Loctite should be pretty good. I went over and I fitted these. I had to take off a couple of threads off of each one. Loctite these into the main body. Going to snug them. All right, and they actually came out pretty good. There's not much of a seam there. Actually, pretty damn good for a casting. Alright, so those are done. I made up a couple of aluminum spaces. I wanted to make these out of steel, so I didn't have to use so many washers. But I got some 2-inch heavy wall tubing, and I just can't remember where I put it. I had some 3-foot sections of it. This will work for today. I just bought it out so that it had clearance. I'll run a steel washer on one side, that, and the linchpin will keep. I'll drop a washer over the top so that it's not just sitting on that linchpin right on the thin mount. there they are. They're ready for plowing today, and I will be plowing and wait for the snow to stop. Probably another couple of hours. So these are ready to roll. Hey guys, again, thanks for watching. Please like the video. It really helps with the YouTube analytics to get it spread around. So please like it. If you like the content, subscribe to the channel. I thank you a lot for watching. Hopefully have a good new year in 2022. Thank you.